Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the pre-show, everyone. This is Scotty Roberts. I'm your host here on my show, the Intrepid radio program, coming to you from Odyssey Radio, and it's actually Subspace Odyssey Radio. And this is not the actual show yet. This is just the pre-show. So don't go apeshit or get too wild and crazy yet. It's coming 3 minutes after the top of the hour. It's now 1:24 after the top of the hour, after 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you've come to enjoy the show, you can start now. You can come on in. Hey, Kalina, good to see you. Thanks for coming aboard. And we're going to talk more about the Djinn tonight. And it's interesting stuff. Yeah, I got to show you this. I just printed these out because I'm doing some tarot readings. These are some of the cards that I'll show you later when you can see them better. Just some of the cards I illustrated for a tarot a couple of years ago. And I printed them out. It's not the whole deck, of course. I only did a few, but I got to keep working on that. Got to pick that project back up. So we're just killing a couple of minutes. Well, not even that yet. And now we've got about a half a minute and we go live. So we're going to go dark for those of you who might be new here. We'll go dark for a few seconds. You all sit tight while we go to the show intro and get the ball rolling. Here we go. Going to go dark. Sit tight.
The Intrepid Radio Program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the program. Let me adjust my camera. There, it went all yellow on us. I need a new camera on this show. If you're new here, this is the Intrepid Radio program. We just had our 3-minute pre-show, which is not really me warming up. It's just making sure everything's working right. I used to, on a regular basis, forget to turn on my mic. And sometimes, without looking at the chat room, we'd go 8 minutes into the show before I notice everybody's waving at me over there saying, Scotty, you didn't turn on your mic. So now that hasn't happened in a long time. Sorry about that. Putting the hands in front of the camera, it readjusts the camera when I do that. So one of these days, I'll be able to get a new camera. The one I'm looking at's a couple $150. So I may pop for that pretty soon. Now, I think we need to get a new camera going. This is my computer, as glorious and beautiful as it is. It's a nice big screen computer that I work on with graphics. It still works great for all of that, but the camera is about done, I think. It looks a little blurry to me. You can see what it does with the colors. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. How's that for the intro of a show? Hey, let me show you these because it's kind of fun. I'm doing my daily card readings over on TikTok. And if you'd like to go over there, go to TikTok /Mr., all spelled out, M-I-S-T-E-R, Mr. Scotty Roberts, and you'll find me. I do a card of the day. They last about roughly 2 to 3 minutes a day, 4 minutes, some of them. But I thought I'd print out a couple of my unfinished personal tarot deck that I've started working on. 2017, I think, is the copyright date on this. It's when I started that deck, and then I pushed it aside. I just got too busy, and I never finished it. But hopefully we'll get that going. But here, I printed some of these up. Here is the High Priestess card. I got to see if it'll maintain focus of any kind. Now, this is the card. I actually used my wife, Rainey, as the model for this. And there's the High Priestess card. And I printed these up so I could do some readings when I'll do a reading on the High Priestess. And then I've got the Mage or the Magician card here. And that's another one that I created for that deck. And I did a few more of these. I never got into getting it completed. I had put up a Kickstarter to try to work on the publishing, and that went a little flat, so we just didn't pursue it at that point. And that was 7 years ago now. It's amazing how time flies. One of these days, I'll pick that back up. And Field Guy says, the Holy Boobs card. Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. There you go. See? That's basically, well, that's Rainey. Rainey posed for that, and I took a shot, and I painted it. There you go. So, Elderberry is here. Steph Cuervo Queen is here. Kalina is here. And who else we got? We got Field Guy. And Randall Flegg is here. And got a couple more of you. So I want to welcome you to the broadcast, folks. If you're watching on the YouTube, you're watching the simulcast in video, joining the chat room, that's very cool. If you ever want to just listen, you can tune this in on YouTube, or you can go over to Subspace Odyssey. Go to odysseyradio.com. That's ODYSY radio.com. I have to spell it out because we dropped an S in there because somebody, when they founded the station, somebody already had Odyssey Radio, something like that. So ODYSY radio.com. Thank you, Field Guy. And if you're over there on the radio station, you can come on over to the YouTube channel. If you're on Facebook, you can come over to the YouTube channel. If you want to chat, you're going to miss most of what happens in the chat room here, unless I'm posting it, because the YouTube does not carry over to the Facebook chat. So you can type comments over on Facebook, but they won't pick up here in the chat room, and you won't see the chat room. So it'll look pretty vacant. Come on over. YouTube.com/Scotty Roberts. And that's the best way to find us here. I'm going to try one thing while we are, if I can. Maybe I can't. Maybe I can't get at it. And it's all on the other side of the computer. This keeps going really yellow. And the only way I'll avoid that is to really turn up the lights. See, like that. Hey, I'm all washed out now. But, and of course, you can cover the lens and it refocuses. There, that's more real color, but then it works its way back to yellow. Oh, well, that's all right. I'm an honorary Simpsons character. So says Field Guy. Well, let's jump back into the djinn. I find this still such a fascinating topic. Oh, wait, before I do that, I wanted to read you something. I've got my client, Andy Dabbs, who he said, you know what you ought to do? He says, I know you're a writer. Don't get offended that I'm suggesting this. He says, but you ought to go over to Chat GPT. It's an AI for writing, which I really kind of, I stick my nose up in the air at, because I'm like, I'm a writer. I'm a published author. I don't need an AI to write for me. But what he uses it for is to write his marketing stuff, and it pulls up, you can put the settings in it to set all the marketing keywords and so on. I'm looking for ways to expand the reach of this show. My friend Andy, he just put up a YouTube site like this one where we broadcast in simulcast, and in a month he's got 27,000 people. After 5 years, almost, 4+ years of doing this show on YouTube, I've got 1,200. And I thought that's pretty low numbers. And the reason for expanding is, wouldn't it be nice to expand the show so maybe that's all I'd have to do for a living? And imagine the things we could do with this show if that were the case. So I keep looking at ways to expand this and make this be something that maybe pays some bills. So I'm looking at ways to market. And in talking to Andy, he said, use this chat GPT. He said, because he's paying for bots, maybe. Avoid debt at all cost. It gets hacked all the time. Is that what you're talking to me about that? He's been using it. It's been working. It gets him real followers, which is kind of neat. I don't want fake followers. I'm not going to fork out a bunch of money to have a company give me 100,000 fake followers who, you get the numbers, but do they watch? Are they loyal to the show? Do they enjoy the show, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? No, not if they're real people. So he's going to, field guy. And I do his work every day. I'm working with him. So I'm pretty sure he will do that. So here's the deal. I went into this chat GPT. I didn't set any parameters. All I did, I told Andy, I'm going to give that a try. I'm going to see what kind of marketing blurb it gives me. So I typed into chat GPT. My question was this. Let me call this up. I said, write a descriptive paragraph about my talk radio show that focuses on metaphysics, paranormal, and weird ancient history. That's what I asked it to do for me. And in about 2 seconds, it came back with this. Now, I didn't name my show, so it called my show Arcane Waves, which is kind of a kick-ass little title, isn't it? Name. But, so it didn't call it Intrepid because I didn't name it. So it came up with something that I thought, hey, mechanics, good to see you. I thought it'd be interesting to give this a try for marketing to see if it could pick up, do the keywords and all that. Well, listen to this. This was kind of cool. This is what it wrote for my radio show. Listen to this. This is like hiring a firm to do it, except this is free AI. Not that I'm not a writer and can't do my own. There is a pride factor and an ego factor there. I'll admit it. I like to say I do this stuff, so why would I hire AI to do it? Or incorporate AI. So this is what it wrote. Again, my query was this. Write a descriptive paragraph about my talk radio show that focuses on metaphysics, paranormal, and weird ancient history. Now, it called my show of its own accord because I didn't name it Arcane Waves. So I'll replace it if I can read it fast enough and replace it. I'll put Intrepid in there. Give you an idea. Here's what it wrote. Tune in to the enigmatic world of Intrepid Radio, where the boundaries of reality blur and the mysteries of metaphysics, paranormal phenomena, and ancient history converge. As the host of this captivating talk radio show, you guide listeners on a journey through the shadows of existence, delving into the unexplained and the inexplicable, with a voice that resonates with intrigue. I have intrigue. My voice has intrigue. With a voice that resonates with intrigue and a mind steeped in the esoteric. You unravel the threads of the unknown, weaving together tales of eerie encounters, mystical experiences, and strange occurrences from across the ages. From the cryptic wisdom of ancient civilization to the uncharted realms of the supernatural. The Intrepid radio broadcast is a beacon for those who dare to question the confines of conventional wisdom and explore the boundless depths of human curiosity. So dim the lights, tune in, and prepare to be transported to a realm where the arcane whispers of the past meet the enigmatic whispers of the present. Ooh, wow, nice, huh? Field guy, I could write that for $5. I'll give you $10. Do better. I'll send it to you. Give me your PayPal. Sounds like Scotty Roberts says Randall Flagg. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know if it picked up on my stuff or not because I had to sign in and all of that stuff when I did this. So it was interesting. Get a link in and advertise for marketing art. Get on LinkedIn. I'm already on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for Elderberry. You should go look me up. LinkedIn, I think it's /Scotty Roberts. You can go look at it under Scotty Roberts or Mr. spelled out Scotty Roberts. I don't know which one it is. But you can go find me over on LinkedIn. I've been over there for 10 years or more. So you can check it out. Let's see. Oh, here's some news. Here's a little update. My publisher called me the other day, and he wrote me last week. It's Michael with Red Wheel Wiser. Well, he's still with New Page Books, who has always been my publisher. They were bought by Red Wheel Wiser. Now they're an imprint of Red Wheel Wiser. And he said to me, he first contacted me. Do you remember how long ago this was? When I was in Utah. That was 2018. That's 6 years ago. God forbid that much time has gone by. But he contacted me and wanted me to expand my book on the Nephilim into a second edition printing. And then he also hit me up on the idea of writing a book on the Book of Enoch. I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. Well, that was all at the height of having just recently had gone through the heart surgery and all of that. And I just was not in any way, shape, or mood or mind to write. And there were a couple of times I called him or I wrote him and I said, Michael, I just can't do it. Can't do it right now. I want to get on it. I'm on it. I want to do this. But I don't think I can yet. And so I went through a period of time, and I just said this to Michael yesterday. I don't know if I've ever said this on air or not, but about 3 years ago, I remember standing on the front patio of our townhome where we lived just before we moved here into the house. And I stood there, and I'm not looking for crying in my milk or my soup or having anybody go, oh, or garnering anybody's feelings or anything like that or getting sympathy. But I stood there and I was so down. I was doing this radio show and I thought I hit it pretty well, but I think I was at rock bottom, just depression. And I'm not a depressive type of person. It wasn't like, oh, I'm manic depressive, and it wasn't like that. I'm a pretty upbeat, positive kind of guy. But I stood there and basically got a little teary-eyed all by myself, which made me snap out of it in a few minutes. But I thought, oh, what am I doing? But I remember saying to myself at that time, so this is it. It's not going to get any better than this. I'm not going to regain my youth. My body's broken up. I have no energy. I have no willpower to defeat the energy drain. I have nothing left to give. And I thought I was done. I sincerely sat there and said, this is it. I got nowhere to go. And I do things like this radio show by rote. And I could break myself out of that melancholy, that lapsing junk that goes on in our head. I'd get on this show and I would do the show and I would enjoy it. And that would break me free of it. And I do art projects and that'd break me free of it. But yeah, Elderberry, you said you can find me there also. Field Guy says, I think I had one of those link things. Oh, okay, something different. But there you go. And so I trudged on and I came out of that. I still have my misgivings about things and I still feel like, well, I'm getting a little older and I can't do things the way I used to. That kind of depresses me a bit. Not real depression, situational, discouragement, all of that. So, but I got myself out of that. I had to dig myself out of that. I didn't want to go to counseling for it or take drugs for it or anything like that. I just said to my doc, I remember at that same period of time, I was in so much pain from my hip. Well, no, I take that back because the hip was before this. I had the hip surgery 6 years ago. And but I remember somewhere in there where I even got a handicap thing for my rearview mirror. I was walking in to see the doc, and this was on the grade downward, and I stood there in the parking lot, and I could barely move, and I thought, I got the heart thing going on, I got already taken care of, I got the hip not working, and I said to my doc, I said, Doc, I said, you gotta give me something for this. But that's where I was. Okay. We all go through these things from time to time. And I'm not sure even where I was going with all of this. Other than to say, I'm really working hard at trying to do the best I can do here. I've got so many different things I could be doing. Rainey really wants me to get the tattooing down so I can start doing that. And she's right. As soon as I get that down, I could probably do really well at it. But it's a whole change of career for me. It's an offshoot of what I do. I've drawn pictures for a living my whole life. I've just never imprinted them into skin. So that's still out there. I'm still working on that. I got the tarot decks. I got the, I know why I was talking about this, because I was talking about with my publisher yesterday. And so we talked about all this stuff, and I said, I think I'm in a place where I can get something rolling. And we talked about, he said, well, what else have you got in mind? He says, the Book of Enoch would be great, and I certainly want to get the second edition of Nephilim from you. He says, what's on your mind? And we talked about other topics. And he wanted me, he says, the way he said it, it was so uplifting. He said something to the extent of, he says, you know what? He says, what we're missing the last couple of years, he says, is a Scotty Roberts book. He says, I love your writing. I know you write well. He says, I want you to write a book for us. And he says, if you're ready, we're ready for you. So I'm going to try to spend the next 3 weeks putting together some good proposals for them, and see which one they want to pursue. One of them is along the lines of something Graham Hancock had written about. Some things I don't know so well, but one of the topics, it came from, he gave me the title of a book, and that book was The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, a study of the nature and origins of Christianity within the fertility cults of the ancient Near East. And it's by John Allegro. And I thought, whoa, what an interesting sounding book. And so it's really the idea of digging in to Christianity. I've talked about that on this show before, how different Christianity was in the first century in its origins than what it became with the literalist Orthodox Church that murdered the mystics and murdered the Gnostics and really killed their way into top dog place to preach the love of Christ. So it'll be interesting. I'm thinking through and seeing what I'll do. If you've got some ideas, shoot them my way. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to write up some good proposals, and maybe we'll be able to have a new book out in the fall of this year, depending on how soon we get it going. So there you go. All of that. That's all preamble. I've used up half of the radio time talking about my personal things, but hey, it's my show. So I appreciate you being here and letting me spout off about stuff like that every now and then. And the chat has grown very quiet, so that must be because of me. So let's get into the topic, shall we? And the Djinn, I asked the question for tonight, As you can see here, if I take down my banner for a moment, and I never put this up, I add this to the stage. The Jinn, where did they come from, and do they really exist? It's really an extension of where we started last time, when I had to broadcast by my phone, on my phone, by the way. And so, which makes me wonder, while we're just talking here, I just want to make sure my settings are right. Yes, they are, because everything was off. Everything was fried out the other night. And so, the Jinn, where did they come from? We're extending this from the other night. And we're going to keep going through this until I feel that we've really gotten enough out of this topic that it gives us an understanding. Because, hi, Barbie D. Hey, Sarah Yusuf. Sarah says Christianity has a rich history, also rich in instruction for living. Oh, it certainly does, Sarah. It certainly does. I mean, I can, on that topic, I can talk about the Apostle Paul and believe that he was a Roman a Roman Christian. More that one of the theories is that Nero put him up to hijacking Christianity so it wouldn't become this huge sect that was so anti-Roman. And so Paul did that. Now, he was genuine in the things that he said, but so where I might look at Paul and say, I have a problem with Paul. Peter had a problem with Paul. Paul, I don't think, was a very likable guy. You remember, he was the one carrying his conversion experience as he wrote about it. Or no, it was as Luke wrote about it. Was he was on his way to Damascus with a pouch full of death warrants for Christians. And when Jesus struck him down on the road from a light from heaven. And that was his experience of conversion. So whatever he was, if he was a plant by Nero, he still disseminated good philosophy. Now, as the first century dragged on, of course, you had the mystics who had one version of their belief that Jesus was the God-man was the original concept. And then the literalists took that and changed it. At least historically. Is that true history? Is that what really happened? And then they won the battle because they set out destroying anybody who did not believe what they believed. That would be like me if I were a Christian saying, I'm going to convert, I want to offer you conversion to Jesus Christ. And if you reject the message of love, I'm going to make sure I run you through with my sword or hack you to bits or burn you at the stake. That's why I kind of make a little mockery of it when I say you look at literalist Orthodox Christianity, which became by the end of the 2nd century, the Roman Catholic Church. They used Old Testament means, if you will, the means of if you don't believe what we teach, you are an infidel and we will wipe you out. Oh, where do we hear that nowadays? The early Christian church was doing that, but early Christianity was very different than that. Now, that's not the topic for tonight. Joel Seltman says, beware Graham Hancock, as many of his timelines are quite off kilter. Yeah, there's always something to beware somewhere, Joel. I appreciate that. And you always know you got to look at everything and weigh everything out. I'm not looking at Graham Hancock as the guide for what I would write. As a matter of fact, I probably wouldn't dig into his work too much because I wouldn't want to copy him. Or I'd be afraid of not being original enough. So I would avoid doing that. That's like when I wrote The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare. Anthropomorphized historical characters set in the Tudor England, Ireland, Scotland. And somebody asked me, is this a book like Brian Jacques Redwall's series of books? Very well known. Very profitable for Brian Jacques. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. I said, as a matter of fact, I avoided his books once I knew what they were because I did not want to copy his work. I wanted my work to be original. And so what I said at the time, I said, if you're going to say I'm like Brian Jacques, that's like saying Star Trek couldn't have existed because Lost in Space existed, kind of thing. Or Star Wars couldn't have come around because there was Star Trek before it. It's the same genre, totally different. So, but thank you, Joel. I appreciate the warning there. That's for another time. I can talk about that topic. So, when it comes to the jinn, we left off at a certain point where we're talking about most types of the jinn are things that we're going to talk about, we're going to encounter, and that the Arabs' belief in jinn long predated Islam, which came about in the 7th century. And according to all the ancient beliefs, the spirits, the jinn, were believed to haunt dark and desolate places. We talked about that. People needed to protect themselves from these beings. And it's often assumed that belief in the jinn, who were thought to dwell in the desert, originated with the Bedouin. We talked about the Bedouin a bit. There was another American scholar, William Albright. That's when I pulled out my book by Breasted, thinking it was him. So the word jinn is not originally Arabic, but it's derived from Aramaic. Aramaic-speaking Christians used the term to designate pagan gods reduced to the status of demons, which is kind of what you had with Islam. And this is not meant to be insulting to anybody who is Muslim. But what I found in my research was that what Muhammad did when he founded Islam, he created a religion out of whole cloth, much like I think Moses did with Judaism. He went and he took all the gods of the Arabic culture and reduced many of them. This is an oversimplification, by the way. Reduced many of them from God status, but elevated the one to and renamed him Allah, the one God. And so that's what caused me, both with Islam, with Judaism, with Christianity, which is just a sect of Judaism, to begin questioning, well, what's really true then? Then is it just the teachings are true? The stuff that is like Buddhism, Shintoism, all of these things that are the things that you follow to better your heart, to better your position with other people in that position. What I mean by that is to better your society. The faith stuff is what you choose to believe beyond just the teachings. So that was Albright's take on it. I talked about Henninger, who did a study of local Arabian pre-Islamic divinities called idols or asnam or companions, shuraka, by Hisham ibn al-Kalbi, and around in the 800s BC, AD. And the other early Muslim authors. Cults worshiping all these divinities were limited to specific areas or tribes. The Hudayl tribe, or Hudayl tribe, if I'm pronouncing that right. For example, worshipped a god called Su'a in a village near Yanbu on the Red Sea coast. And according to Ibn al-Kalbi, the Tai tribe, Tayyi, how do you say that? Tai tribe had an idol called Al-Fals, a red rock shaped like a man atop a black mountain, which was worshipped up until the birth of Islam and was destroyed by the Prophet's son-in-law, Ali. And so such pre-Islamic deities are often called companions because they were sometimes mistakenly, from the Muslim point of view, associated with Allah. And so apart from Ibn al-Kalbi's slender volume from the 8th century, the Book of Idols, very few specifics have survived about the hundreds of early Arabian deities. And in some cases, you think the Arabs only had one God, Allah. They had hundreds, just like many other. It's evolution of what they have now. So you have to ask yourself, is Allah real? Or is he invented? Is Jehovah real? Or was he invented? These are all good questions. And sometimes, in some cases, we don't even know the real names of these deities or where they were worshipped. Sometimes they're referred to only by a title, for instance, as Lord of such and such a place. And so the myths which might have told us more about these divinities and their character are almost entirely lost to us. They're eclipsed, in some cases, suppressed by Islam, its proselytization, just like certain tales of early Christianity were suppressed by the proselytization, the forced proselytization of the literalist Orthodox Church, which became the Catholics. Sarah, I agree with all that. Every culture does that, and regardless of name, we see the effects of belief. Yeah, we do. We do see the effects of belief. And I don't think that dismisses the bad or makes the good any better. I think these are all things, regardless of what you call them or who you put the object of, who becomes the object of your faith. It's what does the teaching say? Like early Christianity. If the literalist Orthodox Church told me to murder my neighbor if they didn't believe what I believed about Christ, I would have a problem with that. Same in any religion. But then there's the good stuff. We talk about the negative because we know the good stuff. We just don't always know all the negative stuff that happened. So regardless of the name, we see the effects of belief. We sure do. The positive and the negative effects of belief. So the myths which might have told us more about all these divinities are lost. Bedouins of the desert, the nomadic Bedouins, or with the settled peoples of the Middle East, these deities originated. And at various times before Islam, Bedouin tribes often adopted divinities from settled communities so as to facilitate rudimentary trade, social interaction, and in all of these areas. But the nomadic people of the Syrian and the Arabian deserts may also have had their own gods. Henninger cites the example of a god named after a mountain, Dushara, or Dushares, who was almost certainly of Bedouin origin. And Henninger describes pre-Islamic deity worship as a chaotic picture and is reluctant to characterize the large array of gods as pantheon because they really weren't. It was all disjointed. And among these guys, and by the way, we're focusing on Arabic culture only because it's the origins, seeming origins of the jinn. So we're focusing on that for a minute. So among all these gods, there may have been some that were originally jinn, mythical ancestors or legendary heroes. They were elevated little by little to the rank of God. And then he says, on the other hand, some of the gods developed directly from personification of natural forces in pre-Islamic deity. Kuza, for example, one may still discern the features of a storm god. And it shouldn't be thought, however, that these gods must first have passed through a spirit or a demon stage, and that the celestial beings are posterior to the earth spirits. Some of them derive from just a function of the earth. So some Western scholars of the Middle East believe that the earliest jinn were conceptualized as malicious demons, living in deserted or contaminated places, often taking the form of animals. So why do we always have in human history, we conceptualize this god to be this, or that angel to be that, or that demon to be that, or that spirit to be that? We conceptualize these things. Does that mean we had to make them up? Or that there were encounters and we named them or gave them attributes to better understand them. Sarah says over in the chat room, the myths are alive and evolving. Look what happened to Baal and Astarte. Yeah, they're still around, just in a little different form. Remember the prophet Elijah and his confrontation with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel in Israel. Kalina says in the chat room, so people can comprehend. Yeah, a little bit. But if I have to change the story or add to the story or embellish the story for somebody to understand who God is, am I really teaching the real God? Or am I teaching my perception of the real God? There's a question. Some Western scholars of the Middle East, they believe that the earliest jinn were conceptualized as these malicious demons. Other Middle Eastern scholars say the jinn originated as early deities of people such as the Sumerians, the Akkadians, often nature gods and goddesses who were later dethroned and displaced by more sophisticated beliefs, but not totally discarded or forgotten. And although the specific origins of the jinn belief are in dispute and shrouded in confusion and mystery, it's known that the earliest jinn were believed to come from the desert. But belief in these creatures crystallized not in the deserts of the Middle East themselves, but in settled and sown areas where agriculture had taken root and cities and civilizations were being built, particularly in Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, the home of the Sumerians, Babylonians and Assyrians, and now the land we call Iraq. The Bedouins who roamed the trackless deserts of Greater Arabia with their flocks of sheep, their goats, their camels, they feared the spirit creatures of these regions much less than did the city and the village folk, who dreaded the remote sand wastes because they were thought to harbor the unknown and the mysterious. Still to this day, really. You know, some of the most courageous people I've met when my travels in Egypt and in the Sinai were the desert Bedouins. We were guests of Sheikh Barakat, a Bedouin chief in the Sinai. That guy could kick ass. He was a tough old bastard, still is. Haven't talked to him since the last time I was there, obviously. But the last I had heard was during all the ISIS stuff, which we were there right at the beginning, the last time I was there, of all the ISIS stuff, that he and all of his Bedouin men in his tribe, they picked up arms and they went and attacked ISIS out in the Sinai Desert to prevent them from taking them over. They are tough codgers, these guys. So anyway, the Bedouins who roamed all the trackless deserts of Greater Arabia with their flocks of sheep, their goats, their camels, they feared the spirit creatures. Pazuzu, the ancient Mesopotamian wind demon. I don't know if he has anything to do with the Zazu, is it? The demons that guys like Zach Baggins encounters and stuff like that. I don't know if it's a variation of that. But Pazuzu, the ancient Mesopotamian wind demon, is an example of a desert spirit, a primordial jinn who struck terror in the hearts of city dwellers of Eridu. Remember Eridu from the Tale of Atrahasis, the old cuneiform? His god was Enki, who came and delivered the humans from the bondage to the gods, the Anunnaki. But Eridu, Nippur, Uruk, which is Iraq, Akkad, and other Sumerian cities, some 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. So jinn are often associated with the wind and are said to travel by it, hence the flying through the sky. Pazuzu, a demon brought into Western consciousness by the novel and the film The Exorcist, is an early form of a nature spirit, probably a fallen deity of antiquity, relegated to the world of the jinn. Pazuzu is first mentioned by the Sumerians and is later identified in Assyrian, Babylonian mythology as the son of Hanpa, or Hanbi, who is the lord of all demons, and sometimes identified with Satan himself later. So novelist William Burroughs, in his Cities of the Red Night, Night, called Pazuzu Lord of Fevers and Plagues, the dark angel of the four winds, with rotting genitals, from which he howls through sharpened teeth over stricken cities. So this seems to refer to the common depiction of Pazuzu, with an erect penis. We can say that, we're adults, right? A boner. Ending in a serpent's head. Hey, honey, I'm ready for you. Serpent head. Oh, my. So, in general, the demon's portrayed as a human animal bird hybrid. And he has canine or a leonine head, animal horns, a human beard, 2 pairs of bird wings on his back, and a scorpion's tail. And the animal parts associated with his image are, by and large, those of breasts and desert wasteland. So Pazuzu is often associated with the southwest wind. But recent research suggests that this may be an error and should be a cold northeast wind, not the hot desert wind. Some scholars consider that this wind demon was one of the most malevolent elemental forces in world mythology. He was a scavenger of desert wastelands, carrying loathsome diseases, desolation, and starvation. Significantly, William Woods states in his History of the Devil, he says this: in Mesopotamia, the horned demon Pazuzu rode on the wind and carried malaria, end quote. Thus affirming the demon's destructive role as Lord of Fevers and Plagues. And although Pazuzu is certainly an evil character, Pazuzu curiously sometimes appears on ancient amulets as a defense against other demons. So in the brutal eras of antiquity, occasionally appeasement was the smartest survival tactic when dealing with the gods and the demons, etc., etc., etc. So portraying a wind demon such as Pazuzu as a creature of the desert might derive from the Egyptian concept of Set, the destroyer most ancient of the gods, who is represented as a strange dog-like animal, not unlike the scavenging denizen of the desert, the jackal. And we have to keep in mind that Pazuzu, despite his perceived desert origins, frightened settled populations, not Bedouins. So remember, the populace in cities who had come out of the deserts were more frightened because they did not frequent those realms anymore. Oh, there goes the monetization, said Sarah. It's not usually too bad. You can say some things. You can get away with some things, as long as it's not gratuitous. And repeat it over and over and over and over again. Yeah, the oldest protection racket. There it is, Sarah. So the ancient Babylonians who succeeded the Sumerians in Mesopotamia were a Semitic people who believed to have originated in Arabia. They were great practitioners of magic, and their lore was replete with the grotesque and the frightening demons that could be summoned by sorcery or driven off by talismans. And many of these demons were primordial jinn. There's the tie-in. Scottish folklorist Lewis Spence says Babylonian demons were legion. Most of them were exceedingly malevolent. And so a good example was the Utuku, an evil, I thought I was going to say, when I first read this, the Urukai, And that's a little Tolkien, which, by the way, I just got this today. Speaking of Tolkien for a moment, The Fall of Numenor. Just got that on sale at Target today. So there you go. Add that to my Tolkien collection. So they were Islamic people. They were practitioners of magic. Their lore was replete with grotesque and frightening demons that could be summoned or driven off by talismans. And a good example of all this, according to the Scottish folklorist, was the Utuku. Utuku even sounds evil. An evil spirit that normally lurked in the desert, where it lay in wait for unsuspecting travelers. But this particular demon didn't limit itself to remote wastelands. It haunted graveyards, a common abode for jinn, and sometimes made its home. And by the way, they're using jinn. Remember, there's so many different kinds of jinn. There were certain types of jinn that would do this. This was back in the etymology of all this. But a common abode for the jinn were graveyards. Sometimes it made its home in the mountains and even in the sea. And any man who spied an Utuku was certain to face a grim fate. If you see them. You know what that reminded me of? I'm going to give you a movie recommendation really quick, because I just watched the end of this last night. Rainey and I started watching this, and we had to go do different things, and we didn't watch the end of it together. But The Dark Divide. It's about a man who was a butterfly researcher of all things, and I wrote a couple of books on butterflies, and he got a grant. His Guten, what do they call it? Not Gutenberg, the whatever. You'll know what it is, the grant. And he was awarded money. This is back in the early 90s, and he went off to go hike for a month through the forests into some gorge and look for these new species of butterfly. And along the way, in this movie, they kept hinting at Sasquatch and Bigfoot. He saw a footprint one day. He would hear vocalizations when he was out camping. And the movie is beautiful. It's out in the northwestern wilderness and forests, mountains. And it's a quiet, sometimes slow-moving movie, but beautiful in the sense that it was sweeping in its beauty, and you're just watching this man, a single actor. He encounters some people along the way, and then I found out at the end of the movie that this is a real guy. And so worth watching, by the way. It made me think of it with what I was reading here. The movie The Dark Divide. It's on, we found it on Amazon Prime. Look it up. You might enjoy it. But anyway, this particular demon didn't just limit itself to the wastelands. It haunted these graveyards. And you were certain to face a grim fate if you came face to face with it. And there were a few things in this movie that, if you see something, that's what made me think of that. But the Babylonians feared another lurking demon called the Rabisu. The Rabisu, which hid in unfrequented spots and leapt out upon passers-by. And the modus operandi, as we'll talk about a little later when we get into them more, of a fairly specialized jinn called the Ghoul, the Ghul, the Ghoul. And yet another early jinn was the Labartu, a Lilith-like female creature, said to be the daughter of the ancient sky deity Anu. There's the Anunnaki. She was believed to live in craggy mountains or in dismal swamps. Two very starkly different locations, by the way. And she was particularly addicted to destroying children. so she would steal your children and eat them. Babylonian mothers would shield their children from the horrors of this demon by placing protective talismans on cords or chains around their youngsters' necks. We've got 1 minute left before we have to exit, by the way, the radio show. I'll go through this last little piece here. Primordial jinn were sometimes portrayed in reliefs and sculptures by Babylonian and other artists of Mesopotamia, and a few representations of the Utuku have survived the ravages of time. They show a creature with a powerful human body, large wings, and a beast's head, a cross between a bird of prey and a lizard. And there's other representations that we can get into. You can find them at the oasis city of Palmyra, what's left of it after ISIS destroyed it, in what's now Syria. The Tudmur, was a trade emporium and a crossroads of people and cultures in ancient times. So very interesting stuff. So all of you over on the radio, guess what? We have to go. We have to leave you to your own devices. But, another guess what? You can join us all right here in our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can look for this show. It's going to still go. We're not going to break. We're just going to have different ads and motifs coming up for different shows. And you can come on in and join the chat room for the Captain's Cabin, our after show. A little more informal. So all of you out there, I want to thank you on the radio for being here. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid Radio Broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep.
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, Aaron, welcome to the captain's cabin, y'all. Good to have you on board. And this is the after show for those of you who may or may not be new here. The after show is not broadcast over on the radio station. It is just right here on the YouTube channel and the other locations where we broadcast. And it's just for the purpose of warming down from the show. Maybe getting a little more casual and enjoying ourselves that way. And so it's a time you can call in. It's a time where you can hear. I'll actually put the link in the chat room if you want to call in and talk a little bit mostly about what we've talked about. But if you've got other things you want to bring up, you probably can, if it's not too far afield. And what else was I going to say now that we're casual and I don't have to think every second? I put in the link for my TikTok. Some of you from this show and this audience have already come and joined me over there. Thank you, Barbie D. She says, take care, everybody. Are you off? She might already be gone. Sarah's coming in. All right. But that link to my TikTok, you can come there. I do a card reading every day, and I do a card of the day. And I'm not sure which one I'll do tomorrow. I usually shuffle and draw, but I've got a couple of the cards that I had done up that I illustrated. I know we had not done the magician or the mage before, so I might do this card tomorrow since I've got one here. And of course, we have the high priestess there. And so those are two of, I only did about a half a dozen cards for that deck. I should pick that up and finish it. Just time consuming. It would take me another 70 plus days just to get the illustration work done by doing an illustration a day. So we'll see what happens with that. And so Sarah Yusuf is here. Let's bring her in. How you doing, Sarah?
Hey, Scotty.
What's going on?
Just listening in.
All right. So what's your take on all this stuff? I know mostly what we talked about tonight was more history, historical data, setting background, so on.
Well, I enjoy that.
All this stuff.
That's the sort of stuff I enjoy. But
good.
Yeah. So one of the things that that we have to also consider, is also context of the area, because it's like we were saying earlier with using. Some people use gods as their own version of a protection racket.
Right.
I'll give you veneration if you protect me, or provide.
Yep. Save me from hell, and I'll worship you.
I mean, not even that far. I mean, to just for everyday living.
Just everyday living. Sure.
Also, it's like when we think about Jinn, we think about the desert, arid regions. Where food may or may not be plentiful.
Right.
You have warring tribes, warring peoples. You had like the Acadians and all that stuff.
And sometimes we think, well, why didn't those people just go to a more fertile place to live? Well, back then it's not like hopping aboard a plane or, and traveling somewhere else. You may not even know that other place existed because all you knew was where the environs you lived in. And when trade started coming in, I think you started seeing people moving around. But man, they're stuck in those environs, and they have certain mythologies they've built up about it. And I used to ask this question. It's like rock art, ancient rock art. And I thought, like the ones I would see on dealing with the ancient alien topic. And you'd see all these little stick cavemen with their spears and stuff and hunting animals. And then in the midst of them was one that's like 3 times as tall as they were, with this big bulbous head and looked like electricity shooting out of the head, and had big clawy arms and very different structure than the other men. And you say, was that a being? Was all rock art meant to disseminate a deep, significant message, or was it a chronology, or could it have been could there have been a guy living back then like me who liked to tell stories, and they didn't have published books, but he drew pictures on the walls and he'd gather the children around or the people around. He was a bard, and he made up a tale about some hairy beast that was 9 feet tall that would attack you if you go beyond the environs of the encampment at night, nights of the full moon or whatever. And so, or the new moon, probably better because you can't see anything. So I've often wondered, what was the etymology of some of these things that you see? And remember that documentary I told you about not long ago about the cave dweller? They weren't dwellers, but it was a month or two ago that they had discovered a cemetery for all practical purposes, multiple burials in the bottom of a cavern of a cave that was very difficult to get to. And it was just found because they were exploring up and down, spelunking, and graves that were actually dug out in shapes and burials. And they found in the hand of one of these people a stone weapon or a stone tool with his hand closed around it. And they dated these things back to, God, if I remember right, almost 500,000 years ago, which is so much earlier than they thought man had evolved from. If you believe in that, is that science to be believed? Is that science structured to support that? I sometimes say science takes as much faith to believe sometimes as faith.
Well, even back then, people were being worked to death.
Right. Well, they were talking about the skeletal structures that they found there. They were all not quite human, but they weren't quite primate either, because they had all the skeletal structure of walking perfectly upright. They had opposable thumbs, but every last one of them had more primate features to the skeletal structure, to some of the structure, the longer arms, the very narrow builds. And they, of course, did artistic renderings, computer renderings of what they thought this skeleton would have looked like, just like they do with forensics today. And they were very interesting looking characters. So you see that, and it wondered if, and the archaeologist was almost in tears with the solemnity that he spoke about this. And there were a couple of different archaeologists, a younger one, an older one. And the older one thought he'd never get a chance to go down in there. He said then he lost some weight, tried to get into shape. And by the filming of this documentary, he was able to, because they had to go up inside this cave, way up an inside steep, and then over, and it was like a drop back down and into a cavern. And he didn't think he'd fit. He didn't think he could do it physically. And so they all really encouraged him, and he did it. They helped him get through. There were a couple of tight spots, and he made it. It wasn't like a big behemoth of a man. He was just older guy. And I know what that feels like sometimes. There are some days my body's so sore. I look at a set of steps and I stand there and I go, I don't know if I want to take the steps, because it's discouraging because it's going to hurt. But he made it down in there, and he's down in there and he's seeing these graves that were dug out. And he's giving the history of these people, and they had done some magnificent animations. They were very kind of scratchy and dull colored and so on, these animations. It didn't look like cartoons. It's just animations of what these people would have looked like, how they would have walked, how they would have interacted, and he was speculating on what they did there. And he was the first one who noticed, while sitting there on the film, he says, look at this wall over here. He says, look at those markings. And they were all these kind of diagonal slash marks going in different directions and like crossing and intersecting and things. And he says, that is so familiar to other ancient forms of wall art, pre-drawing pictures on walls or pre-language, pre-alphabet of any kind. And it compared to Neanderthal things that they had seen, but was more rudimentary. And he thought that these beings were maybe an evolutionary ancestor to Neanderthal. And but the man got emotional about it because he said, what this little cemetery tells us is that even before Neanderthal, he says, pre-human animals, and he says they weren't humans, but they weren't animals. He says this pre-human animal, by virtue of viewing the graves they had dug out, as shallow graves in the bottom of this cave, in a special place, there were several of them, I think several dozen, if I'm not mistaken. And the scratchings on the walls, he says, all seem to indicate a place of worship. And he says, I don't know what kind of worship. He says, but this worship of their fallen family member, clan member, that they took through these caves and brought them all the way down here. And there was all kinds of remnants, by the way, hundreds of thousands of years old, remnants of little fires throughout these caves where they would have set a fire so they could see. They're doing this all with electronic lights and all of that. And he said, imagine when you didn't have that and all they had was flame for fire, for light. And he said, and it showed this in the animation as he's talking, and he says, I could only imagine. He says, was there worship? Did they pray? And he put his hands up. He says, did they acknowledge the existence of something else? He said, there's usually a reason anthropologically that ancient humans buried each other after death. That wasn't just to get rid of the corpse, because they could have just burned it, which some did. But to bury it, and to bury it in a ritual type fashion, in all these graves, said there was a ritual that was taking place with these pre-human, not human animals.
And I think that's the key, that humanity does not have the monopoly on being ritualistic.
There it is.
Yeah. So even in later on the descriptions of the jinn, there's an entire culture, entire types of personality, and how you would interact with specific types of jinn, whether it was jinn royalty. They had their own version of royalty.
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as it's just being immersed in a different culture. I mean, even in the animal world, if we don't take away the the human aspect of it or the supernatural aspect of it, animals have rituals. I mean, it's ingrained. It's ingrained.
They do. So. And we don't think of them as having ritual like, I worship a god, but maybe they do in a different way. And then whatever they were communicating, whatever they were scratching into the wall, was supposed to be a communication. And I don't think they've been able to decipher it. There's no lexicon for it. So what were they doing?
It could be, I mean, even it doesn't have to be a communication. It could be that they were trying to expand the cave, make more room for it.
Now they wondered about that. Is this just chiseling away? And it was too systematic. It was language. He said they all determined it was pretty much language. You'd have to watch this thing, and I can't remember what it was called. I shared it on my Facebook way back, and I think Dan Madsen picked that up and said, "I'm going to watch this." And I can't remember what it was called. It was a Netflix documentary, and I'm just curious. I'm going to look it up while we're talking.
Sure.
But to me, when you look at that, you say, if those were real pre-humans, who was their god?
Assuming that they had a god. I mean, they could
assuming that they had one. Maybe it was just nature.
They could be worshiping elements like nature. Fire, and definitely fire, because most of the early cults and all that were surrounded by as fire, especially.
Maybe it was that, because remember we talked about a long time back about the etymology of or was it etiology? No, not etiology. The etymology of understanding who God was in human civilization, recorded human civilization. We go back to where it was the god of the air, the god of the earth around you. It was it was the god of the mountain, or it was the god of the thunder, or the fire, or the rain, or the flood. And then it kept morphing into it. Finally, it worked its way up to where human monarchies started taking on the roles of becoming deities, and they equated them like in ancient Egyptian culture. The pharaoh was the god, and then it turned all the way, they said, down to roughly 2,000 years ago, when God became the personal God. He was the God with the open arms, who would love you and accept you. He was a personal savior, which is what came out of Christianity. Maybe a little bit even before that. By the way, this there's a YouTube thing on it here. I want to see if I can find a good link for you all. You want to watch this? Here. I'm going to stop that from playing. I'm going to paste this in the chat room, folks. If you're interested, we talked about this once before. If you're interested in learning more about this particular discovery, you can go look at the YouTube link there, which gives the trailer, I believe, for the thing. And it'll give you an idea. That's like a 2 or 3 minute trailer. And it's really good. And the music, along with the animation, the production value of this was so high, while it's dealing with the documentary of archaeologists and scientists and anthropologists, that it made it very inviting. And you wanted to watch this. I got the same feel off of that I got off of watching that movie, The Dark Divide, yesterday, because it was so beautiful out in the wild, and it drew you in to what this guy, where there's not a lot of dialogue with what he was doing and why he did what he was doing. And he was a quirky character in that movie, very quirky. You'll recognize the actor. He plays kind of quirky characters in the movies. Kind of balding, and he had a long white beard, and he had written a couple of books, this character, and was a scientist of sorts, butterflies, and didn't understand a lot of things about life in general. It was at his certain ways of doing things, and his wife dies of cancer, which is really the catalyst for him to start doing this. And he's dealing with that along the way of trying to getting a grant to discover new species of butterflies. And it tells you at the end, what the actual stuff that happened on that trip, and what he did and what he still does today. If he's still alive today, I'm not sure. It didn't say. This would have taken place, the story in the 90s sometime. And so he could very well be alive. He looked like he was in his 60s at least, 50s or 60s at the time. But all this feeling of wanting to, Sarah, when I was in ministry, we said that all of mankind's yearnings, his desire to seek something out, his desire to learn music, his desire to do art, his desire to travel, to explore, that this is all trying to fill that God-shaped vacuum in the heart that only God could fill. And I used to say with one of the tarot cards, I think it was the Two of Wands, where we keep trying to fill that vacuum with other things, and then we have to shake it out and dump it out and start all over again, because we're not filling it until we find the thing that fills it to all its recesses and its creases. And we used to use that kind of an illustration for Jesus and God. And you look at this, and this guy's in a very subtle way. You watch this in that particular movie. I know I'm talking about pop culture with the movies, but in The Dark Divide, he is, this is what he's seeking. And he doesn't know what he's seeking. All he knows is that he's very sad about the death of his wife. And they didn't get along. They showed it toward the beginning, you were looking at this and you thought, well, this is a couple that doesn't get along very well. And I think it was some of his regrets he carried about that into the woods and all the things that he did. So it was, I think I find affinity with that in the sense that I went to Egypt for the adventure. And for those of you who don't know, I didn't just go to Egypt once. I went several times. But I went to find something. I supposedly, according to my faith and the religion I was in, already had those recesses filled. And I found that they were filled until I realized I'm filling this with stuff I don't even know is true. And I can believe it's true, and it has great principles and great things for life, but I wasn't really sure how true it was when it really came down to it. And I think that's what led me looking for other things. And I still look. Some of it is the mysteries. I look at that black figure we talked about that I got a picture of in Egypt. Didn't even know I had the picture till 7 years later. But until I was looking at the picture in detail. And before I even knew I had the picture of it, I had the experience. And then the next year I came back and I delved into it with Chris Conway, and we looked into that. And I had other experiences that multiplied on top of it. So it was like
you were being guided?
Perhaps being guided. And then, of course, the tendrils of old faith always come up, and especially the faiths that tell you have to believe a certain way. And, of course, if it's true, I would tell anybody, you got to believe this way because it's true. Well, you don't want to believe something else. It's like I just noticed today, and I called it up over my Etsy page. I've got a shirt on there that I forgot I had that I put up a long time ago. I put this shirt up, and it's just an artsy white text on a dark shirt, text only. And it's a quote of Spock's from the original Star Trek series. And if you're a real Star Trek aficionado, you'll know what show this was from. But Spock said, "I see no logic in wanting to worship a deity that demands you live in a perpetual state of fear." And I thought about that. Isn't that what Christianity does? Yes, there's the perpetual joy. There's the bliss that awaits you. There's heaven. There's casting your crowns that you earn at the feet of Jesus and God, and standing before God, and an eternity of joy, pure joy, that Paul even wrote about and said, "Eye has not seen nor ear heard of the glories that God has created for those who love him and follow him. But he's revealed it to us, just an inkling of it, in the love of his Son, who died as our sacrifice." So this is the things we were taught. And yet the religion overall, especially what I came from, was not just the fear of going to hell if you didn't accept, but then a whole life of, we called it legalism. And you probably know what that is, Sarah, and other people listening, because it can apply to other things other than just religion. But a legalistic, it was, we had these, I used to call it grocery list Christianity. I said, this list was the list of the do's. These are the things that put you in the will of God. In the will of God is this list of things. This other list was out of the will of God, were these things. And you didn't do those things. You know, it's like the old ditty that's very old, but it said, "I don't dance, smoke, drink, or chew, or hang around with those who do." You know, when I was in high school in the late 70s, the Star Wars era, for God's sake, Indiana Jones. I don't know, when I was started in ministry, Bible school, it was against the rules at Bible school to go to the theater, or I'm sorry, as they put it in their rule book, the movie house. You talk about old people put that one together. Because that was sinful. You're opening up the eye gates to sin. And it's like they would say, masturbation isn't wrong. It's what goes through your mind that's sin. You know, we were taught these things. And to me, that's a legalistic form of belief. Now, is that what God is really like? Does God say, yeah, there's certain things you shouldn't do, and dancing, smoking, drinking, and chewing are a bunch of them? Maybe God doesn't believe you should dance. What's the old joke? What do you get? Let's see. How did it go? It said, why don't Calvinists shag standing up? Because they believe it'll lead to dancing. So, you know, that was the stuff. So the big question is, you find discoveries like these, the cave with the cemetery. Are the jinn real? Or are they just figments of somebody's ancient imagination that spread into folklore, urban legend to folklore, urban desert legend to folklore to whatever, and they became our mythologies?
But I mean, does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters to me is, okay, I'm going to tell you this. I had done Rainey and I and my son Sam came along. We did a ghost investigation for an organization. And we had a bunch of people, an audience, and something happened. Tapping and a bell ringing and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, folks, did you hear that? And I spoke to the source, this little cottage where it was coming from. And I said, if you're there, and the lead up to this was a place where the Fae were said to have been seen. the stories, some legitimate old stories. And so I'm hearing this and I'm really taken aback by this. It's not that I haven't heard these things before. It's that this was in that context. And I thought, here it is, folks. This is what happens. Listen to this. And then I found out a little later that same evening that it was rigged up. And the organizer of this was a good friend. And I went to him and I said, dude, did you rig that stuff up? Oh, man, Scotty. He said, yeah, we did. It's for the audience. And I said, I'm not the audience. I said, you called me in here to do something that was supposed to be real. I said, and you duped me. Until somebody that was with me tripped over the wire in the dark that was pulled to make the bell ring. And he profusely apologized. And I said, man, I get it. It's entertainment. I said, and he was a true believer too, on top of it. But he didn't want to disappoint the crowd. So he rigged things up. And I said, I will never, ever do another event like this with you. And I said, I love you, brother, but I said, you duped me and I felt like an idiot. Now, we since had patched our ways and I've done other stuff for him. But all that to say, what if it is true? What if it isn't true? What if it is made up, we say? I would feel so duped that I wouldn't want to even consider believing anything of it. I'm abandoning that because I feel duped into believing it. Somebody made that shit up and didn't tell me that. That wasn't passed along. It's like politics. Sometimes you feel so duped by politics that you go, I will never vote for your ass. Kind of thing, you know? And it's like I tell telemarketers. They call my phone and there's no caller ID, just a phone number. Many times it's a phone number from the area code I had just talked to earlier that day. So many times it's not a coincidence. Like I talked to Andy up in Duluth, 218 area code. Within an hour, I had a call from a 218. And I thought, Andy calling me from a different phone? And I picked it up and it goes, hello, my name is Steve, and I would like to invite you to, and I'm like, dude. I said, let me tell you something. I said, all due respect to you. I said, this is your job. This is how you're making money. I said, I wish you the best of luck in your work, but I'm going to tell you something. I said, for any company that has to deceive me into picking up the phone so they can sell me a product, deceive me. Well, how are we deceiving you? I said, you don't put your company name in. You route your calls through unused numbers and somehow know the area codes that I'm calling from or have talked to. And I said, so you route it through because you're hoping to get, I said, then when I pick up, there's a 10-second delay. I said, that's usually the spot on identifier right there. If I've got to say hello more than once, hello, 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 you know it's you're on an auto dial, and they'll pick you up as soon as they can. And I said, if you've got to do all those things to get me on the line so you can interest me in this fantastic product you're trying to sell me, I said, I don't want it. I said, if you have to dupe me into answering the phone, you're on my blacklist. I said, no personal offense. I said, but to me, that's a scam. And I said, I'll never buy anything from your company. Hey, Amanda Berry, over in the chat room. And so that's what religion does to me. Almost the same thing. If I find out something, if I'm digging into something, and the more and more and more I find myself banging my head against the brick wall of made-up religion, I'm like, God damn it.
Do you?
It's not real.
Yeah.
And you've duped me, and now I don't want to even believe it. I find sometimes I'll defend Christianity in certain circles. If I see somebody who's being a dick about Christian, oh, it's all fake, and I go, hey, what do you know? What do you know to be true? I'll debate you on that. And using archaeology, history, and theology, but many times I see things, and if it's got that this wonderful thing going on in and you open it up and it's like, and Jesus said, and I'm like, I don't want to read it. I know what you're going to say already, and I'm already, I have still have a love of Jesus in my heart, but I don't know if it's misplaced because I don't know if it's true anymore. Well, then your faith is awfully weak. No, the story is weak enough to poke holes enough in it that I lose faith in it. Go ahead. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, do you feel as though it's a betrayal of connection? Because it's like, like you said, that you look into things, you're trying to, fill the void. It's, that void of connection that we have between us and God. Because, if you look at it from the Christian perspective, consider the type of life that Adam had before the fall. He was intimate with God. I mean, now it seems like,
according to the story.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, where is he now? I mean, for some people, it's the relationship of what we put into it, some people just have to ask and they get, their needs satisfied and answered. Some people, it's more average people, it's more difficult, we try to do our best through, daily, I don't want to say renovation, but we know what word I mean. But I mean, through prayer and, try to maintain our relationship, to maintain our side of the relationship, which basically, like any relationship, it takes work.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, is it worth it? know?
Lucky Stone, by the way, he says, do chimpanzees have gods? Do gorillas have gods? Maybe only humans need gods. Maybe we're the only species that need them. I don't know. Lucky. I don't know. I mean,
for all we know, the Planet of the Apes could be the future.
Yeah. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. So said Charlton Heston in 1968.
But I get that. It's like you reach your hand out and you're either constantly getting slapped back, or you go in one direction and, it's like you said, you feel dissatisfied. So then what do we do? Go from there? Do we go in another direction where we're constantly being moved and guided? That's how, you sort of get to the evolution of the initial religions, right?
Yes.
Where that, everything in the beginning, they had, tribes and everybody believed in a certain thing, but they may have a certain different twist on it until, later on it's codified through biblical figures like, Isaiah and Jesus and, Muhammad, and, just trying to reroute us into a more positive or more direction.
Right.
Because, I mean, at least in the Abrahamic religions, for me, it threads through the entire commonality is, compassion and love. Maybe that's all God wants us to be. We can nitpick on the, and like you say, legal, go through the legalization of, we have to not eat pork, or we have to, we have to do certain purification rituals every day before we pray, or,
It was interesting. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament, for as much as I malign his intent sometimes, he he said he was speaking about this legalism, but he was as legalistic as the rest of them. But he said, what about meat that's offered to idols out there? And they sell it in the marketplace to support their cult or whatever. And he said, and there's some of you that say you shouldn't eat meat offered to idols. This is not honoring Christ. He says, well, I'll tell you what. He says, meat is meat. He says, if it's cooked right and tastes good, eat it. And that's where he made that famous quote there that he says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. All things are lawful, but I will not be brought under by the power of any. So he went on to say, if it offends you, and this is a great statement on legalism, if it offends you to eat meat that was offered to idols, you're free to not eat it, he said. But don't malign anybody else who does. It's not your business. He says, that's their business. He says, as for me, he says, I don't eat meat offered to idols because I don't want anybody to be led astray by what I put. He says, but I don't find it. There's nothing wrong with it. If you want to eat it, eat it. So I think that's where I see all this legalistic stuff. As legalistic as Paul could be about things, women should stay silent in church. Now, of course, a lot of that was cultural too. We know that. But women should stay silent in the church. They should keep their heads covered, Paul said. And now, I don't think he meant a burqa or anything, but he also said something to the effect of, see you, Amanda Berry. I was going to ask you before you left what time it was there in Australia. I think it's around noon, isn't it? You got to go get your son from school, maybe a little later than that, in Australia. So where winter is coming for you guys. It's summer right now. It's hot down there. Anyway, I don't know if she's even still here to have heard that. She's running to get her kid. So, legalism is something that is, I don't think it's from God. I think it's the politics of religion.
And there's always going to be loopholes. It's like
there's always loopholes.
The meat, like the meat thing. I mean, in our religion, we believe, I mean, it's haram to eat meat that's sacrificed, to other gods. We're not supposed to do it. But if you're in an area, or if you're starving, or non-halal meat is available, I mean, you can do it if it meant, if you made an effort to seek it out, but if it's not available in the area, then you can, because it's a means of survival. Because I mean, I live in a middle of nowhere, so it's hard to even find. So I'm okay with eating a hamburger from McDonald's, or fried chicken from KFC, versus if it's not halal. I mean, and it's also a matter of what you are you can be satisfied with your heart. If you tried your best, and if you don't get like a severely bad feeling about it, then and again, that points to the relationship that you have with God. God will tell you in the subtle ways, or not so subtle ways.
Yeah.
So we have to learn how to listen, and then once you learn how to listen, it seems like it changes the game, and then we have to relearn.
And then there's the whole thing of we would say that we taught that God will speak to you if you keep your mind open. He'll speak to you. He'll tell you what he wants, not audibly necessarily,
right?
But then I thought, that could just be my brain too. It could be my active imagination. We all have imaginations. We all have. If you dedicate yourself to something, and it has nothing to do with religion, that thing, you're going to find yourself having a second sense, like archaeology. You could find yourself having a little second sense about something. This looks like a place where I should drop my shovel in because of that, and that. And I'm hearing this voice, this still small voice that's telling me to do that. Is that God? If it's not religious, is it God? Is it? So these are the things I ask, not because I am not trying to disprove God ever. I am trying to, maybe it seems that way sometimes. I try to disprove God because I want God to go, no, 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 it's this, and show me. I've told the stories before, and just the outcome of one of the stories. I remember praying when I went to church. I hadn't been to church for 10 years. And I took my kids. This was when I had custody of my 3 older ones, before I met Rainey by a couple of years. And we went to church. And so, God, this is almost 20 years ago. But it doesn't seem that long. But I went into church, beautiful, wonderful church, and I prayed ahead of time, and I said, God, I said, you know where I've been. I said, I accept that you're there because I'm talking to you. I said, but throw me a bone. Show me something. Give me something. And every event at church that morning at my church was different than I had remembered. There was meetings. There was the pastor, my friend, was gone, Parson Larson. There was all the song service, which I loved. The singing there was shortened. They had one song, then they had a business meeting going on in the church. The elders needed to share with the church, and elders just being not much more than deacons. So we just called them elders there. And it was, I remember sitting in the service with old friends of mine. And I've told this story before, but there was a moment where I sat and I was fighting back tears. And because I thought, there's nothing here. Nothing I asked for is here. And my friend's wife was next to me. He was on the other side, and their kids were in the middle. And she looks over at me, and she kind of whispers. She touches my hand, and she kind of whispers, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I got to go." And I smiled at her, and I said, "I got to go." And so I got up and left, and I never went back. And that was probably the defining moment of when I just said, I'm walking away. And I actually kind of yelled at God for not being there. It was kind of like, I don't know if I believe you anymore, but I'm going to chew you out.
You felt shameful?
No, I didn't feel shameful. I felt disappointed that I had asked, when struggling and looking for something, that I wasn't given a reprieve from that of any kind. And of course, what came back in my head? What do you suppose? In my head, was this God talking or me? Sitting out in my car waiting for my kids, and in my head goes, you didn't need me to throw you a bone. You know everything you're supposed to know already. Just act on it. And I'm like, shut up, brain. That's not why I came this morning. And, it was one of those inner struggles.
Right.
And so I left because I was so emotionally distraught's not the word. I'm not a weird emotional duck. I have emotions and passions, but I looked at all that and I went, Steph just said it, a bit slighted. I felt slighted by God. And at the same time, I could have given you all the theological answers why that was the stupidest thing I could ever have done, reacted to. I was throwing out my fleece for God. And God's like, I don't do that. I don't really do that. What does it say in Scripture? And I don't know if this is part of Islam as well. To whom much is given, much shall be required. And I think, and the context of that for me was the application of it was one of, I'd been to church for years. I knew the language inside and out. I knew the stories inside and out. I knew the Scripture inside and out. I had gone to Bible school. I had been to seminary. I had been in ministry, for God's sake. And so I would be one of those that would probably fall into that category of, you don't need special treatment. You already know the answers to these from within the faith. Not that God couldn't give it. But that he's like, if God is the God of teaching lessons like we were taught he does, be like, why do I have to give you a bone? Why do I have to throw you a bone? Don't you already know this? Come on. I could just see that. And at the same time, I was still angry about that. Like Steph said, slighted. And it was, but I didn't feel offended. Slighting implies offense. I felt deep, grave disappointment. Because the thing I had asked for, everything that morning was the exact opposite of what I went there to look for that particular morning. And it was a rare thing for that church to do that because they were a very people-oriented church, but they had a bunch of business stuff for mission trips and stuff like that. And then it took over the services. Other than a song and a 10-minute thing from the guy who was filling in for my pastor friend who was on vacation. And who I loved listening to. And so it was all those things were together, orchestrated. It seemed like
you needed more than a song and a collection.
Yeah, it's like, God, why did you have me come here on this day with these questions? If you're in control of everything, why this day when none of it was there? Or did you not really have anything to do with that? So there I was. Hey, Heather Marie. Oh, my God, it's Heather Marie. I'm sorry, I got to interrupt things. Heather Marie says, hey. Heather, we've got to talk. What happened to your house? Her house just burned down.
Oh.
Oh, my God. Heather's a dear friend of mine. And we were just like, Heather, if you're still there, if you didn't just do a touch and go here, it's turned into a shish kebab, she says. Yeah. Damn it, woman, I miss you. Give me a call. I need to, not right now, or text me or something. And let's talk about what's going on. She says, I cooked too many s'mores. Well, you got a good attitude about it. I saw a picture the other day of your house completely gutted. And that was her new house last summer, guys.
Oh.
So just right over here. So anyway, we need to talk. Heather's the one that I took on that trip with last summer. She went to pick up her new car and stuff like that. In context, she was here sitting in the studio with me a couple of times. So I have no house. It will be bulldozed into the ground, including everything I own. Everything is gone. Shit. Well, come on over. Come on over tomorrow. If you're not doing anything. So, and we'll talk. We'll have some coffee and talk. So, oh, wait. I have eye surgery tomorrow. 6:30 in the morning. Tomorrow is good. They say I'll be normal by 7:30. Having eye surgery. They said Rennie can pick you up at 7:30, and I should be good. Maybe tomorrow. Text me in mid-morning. See what your morning's like. They said I should be fine almost right away. I'm just going to have a down day with my eyes to make sure they get adjusted and blah, blah, blah. It's I got cataracts, believe it or not. So I think they're doing just one eye tomorrow, maybe two. So this is the bad one. So maybe tomorrow. Guess you won't see me then if I visit. Yeah, I'll have a band. Heather, is that you? I got me eye patch on. I actually have a real one sitting here. One of Uncle Dave's. It was sitting in. I had it in something. Now I don't know where I put it. Real leather one that he made. And you tie it on. So we could play pirate. So thanks, Steph. She says good luck tomorrow. Heather, maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, maybe Saturday morning. So just give me a shout in the morning. Anytime after 8 o'clock. And I'll be back here. So we'll see how it goes. It's not supposed to be I don't know who here's had cataract surgery. You know what it does here? Do you know? Yeah. Okay, Heather. Yeah, do call me in the morning and let's figure it out. Uh, um, uh, Sarah, with cataract surgery, you have any contact with people who've had cataract surgery?
Yeah, sure.
What's it like for them?
I mean, they're usually they usually do one eye, like they'll do one eye, and then the next week they may do the other eye. I mean, you'll bounce back fast within a day or so. So
Yeah, that's what they said.
but I mean,
So
you're going to be surprised how different your
that's what
vision
I've
is going to
heard.
be. Yeah,
Now
it'll be
this
like
is the worse eye than this one. I thought they said they weren't going to do them both at the same time, but then I thought they said we'll probably do them both at the same time. Now I don't know. I won't know till tomorrow morning. Steph says, by the way, Heather Marie, Steph says, don't let him say he can read Braille. Yeah, come here, Heather, let me read you. Hands ready. Thank you, Steph, for that.
you'll have your seeing eye rainy.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah, tomorrow. Give me a call in the morning, Heather. I had to say hi to her. Sorry I interrupted you to do that, Sarah.
That's okay.
But, we're almost done here now anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was saying earlier is that I even saw earlier today in the car, I was, passing one of those church signs, and, it was saying that it was a reminder that, we're on God's schedule. God's not on ours.
Right.
And
yeah,
even for someone of faith like me, I get disappointed in God. I struggle sometimes with, if things are going a certain way, I get down about it. Sure.
Sure.
But then I just have to rely on what I've been taught and what, try to take in, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then,
right.
Kind of bounce back from it. In our religion, we believe that, everything good and bad is because God allows it.
Right.
So
right.
there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
And it's like we were talking earlier about being guided, it's like your friend. Maybe God didn't want her to live in that house,
maybe not
somewhere else. So,
maybe not. But does that matter if you don't believe that he's there? I don't know. Do we operate within our faith systems because that's what we believe is going to be? What? That's the big question.
If we didn't believe he was there, then why would we seek him out?
That's it.
Why aren't we satisfied?
Are we seeking God? Or are we seeking something else? Religion has defined our seeking for us. Oh, you're not seeking adventure. You're seeking God. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm seeking adventure.
It's both.
No, we're seeking meaning, meaning and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's the stuff that governs us.
And, it's that control issue with religion that, that you have to seek in a certain way. I mean, other than, we're a society that promotes thinking outside the box.
Yes.
It's like the same thing with when Jesus first started his ministry. He thought out of the box versus what was
Sure.
going on and what was being practiced at the time. So it's part of it is giving yourself permission to do that, because everything.
Sure.
From the humblest of bacteria to the
do
big
bacteria pray
expanse of the universe. All of it is complex. I mean, we
Sure.
cannot fathom it with our limited brains, but that there's something out there. And then it's that want of connection. What do we want to connect to? We want to connect back to God, to have what we had before. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like, we're half a person, like you're not a whole soul or something.
Exactly.
And that's part of, the whole promise of, the promise of the afterlife, that we'll be reunited once more. I mean, that's not, not going to promote that, because we still have things to do and things to learn in this life.
Right.
But we just, have to take it with humility. And sometimes that means,
and if we don't, then we're tacitly admitting that there's nothing that governs anything. and we're all just a product of nature at large, the universe at large. And there's nothing that governs, there's no hope, there's no reason to be good or bad other than what we devise as a civilization. So there's that flip side that's totally hopeless. So,
and then it, it's also going to boil down to choice. Do you choose to live in a state of hopelessness, or do you choose the other? which would you prefer? The whole. I mean, the entire Bible, most religions, it's all matter of choice. Whether you choose to accept something in your life, like when you were talking, I think about it was the last time about. You and your friend, you both had, I think it was visions or dreams of one with you. I think it was with the giant ruby.
Oh, yeah. Not a dream.
Giant ruby, or that your
psychic medium
Maria.
Said that the guy,
or Maria not taking the hand of the child in her dream or whatever.
Right.
We choose what we accept and not accept. So,
right.
We just have to find the key of what that relationship with God will look like, and do we want to have a good relationship, an adversarial relationship, but kind of like a mocking,
right?
God, things like irony exists. Definitely, that for me, that's just proof that God exists. In fact, we have irony. Like, really, God,
right?
It's like. There's somebody making making us into jokers and jesters.
Somebody is.
Yeah. So,
what did Heather says? I spent 4 months living on the road. Yeah, I remember that last fall. Summer and fall. Heather Marie picked up with her 2 young boys, 9 and 10, I think they are.
Oh. Okay.
And took off. And wait. Why would I forget this point? They're not twins, are they? No,
not with 2 and 4.
She took off, and they just went on the road. She bought this house, and they went on the road, and did a most enviable thing to me. Took a trailer and just went out on the road and traveled. Yeah, identical. That's right. I don't know why that slipped my mind for a second there. Because I know your boys well enough. They're 11 years old now, and identical twins.
Well, and she knows the answer to life. She needs to share.
There it is. Yeah, that's why we need coffee. I know the answers. Why we're here. It all makes sense. Well, good. Let's talk about that stuff tomorrow, hopefully. So
Friday. Tomorrow's Thursday.
Tomorrow's Thursday. Thursday or Friday. There you go. So keep your schedule open. Don't do any house cleaning. Ha ha, joke. House cleaning, no house, it burned down. I know your sense of humor, so I know you'd not take offense and go, oh, I can't believe you said that about my house. But she'd probably say it herself. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. So we got to get this show done. Travis Young laughing my ass off.
One other thing I wanted to bring up was, have you heard anything from Ruben?
Yes, I just talked to Susie. They are, and by the way, that GoFundMe is still up if you want to lend a hand to Ruben. And Ruben Fast Horse, for those of you who don't know him, good friend of mine, didn't have a stroke, had a head injury, and it treated him like a stroke for a while. And now they finally got him into. The hospital was within an hour of their house, but they got him into a facility that's supposed to be a rehabilitation facility to teach him how to read and communicate better. Again, his short-term memory is gone, but his long-term, he's got long-term, but he still doesn't, at certain days, doesn't even know who Susie is, recognizes her, can't say her name, that kind of thing. So they got him into a rehabilitation place, but it's 3 hours from home. So she had only been there once or twice to see him, and he was moved over there just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And she said the bad thing is, she said they haven't done anything. And she said she can't get any answers from doctors. And she said Ruben he hasn't had a single class, a single rehabilitation, PT, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically sitting in bed all day long and gets up and walks, but even that's limited to what he's supposed to be able to do. And she said it's something with the insurance that they, and I don't quite understand it all. Heather Marie, Ruben had a head injury, and 4 months ago now, I think it was, they thought he was going to die. He had lost about 85 pounds, was unconscious. They had him intubated, and he lost all the feeling on the right side. He was treating him like a stroke. And then they finally were able to, he did wake up, and we got pictures of him. He was up, friends came to visit him. He was up walking at the hospital. He'd go outside for walks and stuff, and not feeble walks. He walked just fine. He got all his physical strength back, but the cognitive center of his brain that formulates language and speech patterns and talking, fried. And I talked to him on the phone. And I called him on the phone a couple of months ago, and I said, I called him by his Lakota. He always calls me Chie, which is older brother, and I call him Misu, which is little brother. And I said, Misu, it's Scotty. And he says, and he's laughing. He says, yes, he says, Misu. I said, and I said, I'm your Chia, and he says, Chie, yes. And he couldn't say my name. And we talked a little bit, and he talked about, I'm sorry it took me a long time to get to the phone, brother. He says, but, we were on a bus going through the Wisconsin, and that was something he did like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that was going on. Now they got him in this home. Susie said she is so heartbroken over this right now. She said if she doesn't get any answers by this Friday, day after tomorrow, she said, I'm going to drive up there and I'm going to bring him home. And she says, we'll do our best from home and figure it out. And I said, maybe that would be better for him. I don't know. I don't know how these things work. She's hoping that he would regain that ability. And think of this too, folks. And Heather, since you were asking, Ruben's a linguist, a Lakota language linguist. And he's having communication problems. This is just hell on him right now. So, brain injury, she says. Frederick ataxia, aphasia. Strokes are no joke. I've had a couple. Mine are caused by my jugular vein. I mean, I know all the stuff. We were going through all her medical records over here once and getting them ready for someplace she had to send them in. Sitting on my computer doing that. And it sounds promising. He can recover. Just let the brain heal. That's what we're hoping, Heather, that his brain heals. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about that. I'll fill you in a little bit more. But there, you were asking too, Sarah. That's the last I've heard, is that she wants to go get him and bring him home if nothing new happens. So there you go, folks. And if you want to help him out, he's got a GoFundMe that I put up. And I don't remember how to find it right now. I'll paste it in here. Maybe Heather needs to do this too with the loss of a house. But I also know that Heather's pretty resourceful too. So, but if she needs help, I'll talk to her and let's see what's going on. Let's see. I'm going to look for, there's my fundraisers.
What caused the fire?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What happened? What caused that fire? Well, she said they were doing s'mores. Maybe they're doing s'mores in the living room. I don't know. But Heather, if you're still there, what happened? What caused that fire? That's crazy. Here is Ruben's GoFundMe, by the way. So we'll see if she gets back to us. We're technically done here tonight.
Oh yeah.
Heather, I'll stall for a couple of minutes, and if you're still there and you want to say anything about that, you can. Otherwise, I'll wait till we get together and you can tell me. So, but she says 3 different investigators, all different ideas, no known cause. Wow. Shit, might I say. So we'll talk more about that, Heather. So, that's terrible. Where are you living right now? Just curious. So, you don't have to say it on air, by the way. Anyway, if we were sleeping, we wouldn't have. Oh, she says if they had been sleeping, she wouldn't have made it. They'd have killed them all. Oh, you're staying in a hotel. Okay, good. Well, I hope your insurance is helping out with that too. So
they should.
It should.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks, we're gonna call it for tonight. And Sarah, it was great having you on. Great talking about this.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you, Scott.
I hope for you and anybody else that it's doesn't get too boring. You're possibly moving over by us? Yes.
See?
Yes. Being a good neighborhood. See? It's providential. But I hope this stuff doesn't get boring for anybody, because sometimes it's the same old song and dance that I come up with.
Yeah.
But still not satisfied with it. So
still searching for that connection.
Was that say never? Never, you're never going to move by us? Or was that to something else? So, never bored. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. And so anyway, there we are. So I hope you had a good time. Thanks for being on, Sarah.
No problem.
I appreciate it. Means a lot to me. You have a good rest of your night.
You too. Take care, Scotty. And don't.
You too. Oh, I cut you off. You were saying something. There you are.
No, I was saying take care and don't worry about the surgery tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
See how you.
We'll
see how you do by Friday.
I don't worry about these things, which is funny. I don't get too worked up or nervous about it. I just pray that the surgeon doesn't sneeze or something while he's.
Well, it's all done by lasers now, so
Getting a new lens put in my eyes, so it'll be interesting. So, and it only takes an hour. I've got to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, or I'm sorry, 6:30. They told me to be there. Okay, and I said, what time should my wife pick me up? And they said 7:30. You'll be ready to go. I said, really? An hour? Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
it's slick. Quick. I mean, it's so routine. I mean, he could probably do it with his eyes closed. So
probably. Yeah. Let's not do that. I'm going to bring my eye patch in tomorrow for fun. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think they usually say they don't do both. I've heard they don't do both because they don't want you to be blind for a day or two.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they said. Maybe they're doing one, and if everything goes well, the other one will be a week out or 2 weeks.
Yeah,
out.
They usually do it. Well, I mean, at least here, I've most of the people that I know who had to have both, then do one week, and then the next week they do the other. Pretty close together, so you should be good, and then you'll have your super eyes. If you
there
start
it is.
Shooting
my X-ray vision. All right, now I'll let you go.
All right, thanks.
We'll
Take care, Scotty. I'll see you Friday.
Bye, Sarah. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for being part of the show. My lighting still sucks. There it goes. It's back to normal. Now it'll fade back to yellow. It's my camera, I think. And so thanks, everyone, for being here. Go check out my TikTok, where I'm doing daily card readings over on the TikTok. Been doing it for about a month now. And I'll be doing the new one for tomorrow, right after this show. And then it'll post after midnight. And yeah, no X-ray vision, says Steph. No X-ray vision. Oh, that's a question. Yeah, that would be interesting. So, how's Steph? How you doing? What am I looking at? Nothing. I can't see nothing. So anyway, I'll let you all know how the surgery goes. No radio tomorrow. I should be back Friday. I don't see why I wouldn't be for the show on Friday. So everybody, you have a good night. I want to thank you for being here. We'll see you next time. And Heather, give me a call tomorrow, mid-morning, and we'll see what's going on. And everybody else, we'll see you later. Live long and prosper.